Welcome everybody, welcome to Holy Trinity. Lovely to see you here this morning. There are visitors all over the place in our congregation this morning, and so if the person sitting next to you hasn't said to you, welcome to Holy Trinity, great to see you, it could be that they're a visitor and they're waiting for you to say to them, welcome to Holy Trinity, great to see you. So just to avoid any of that, could you just introduce yourself to the people around you with your name and a welcome please? Off you go. So it is very good to see you. Some people are returning after a year away. They came last year and thought we can't get back to that church for another year, but they are back again. So it's great to have you guys here. You're in a bowling holiday, which is just amazing. So that's really good. Welcome to Claire and Dan and family. Claire is being baptised this morning. So Hetty was baptised how long ago? 2 or 3 months ago. You thought, I want some of that for myself. And so Claire is going to be baptised here this morning. I have no idea how to do adults by sprinkling. I usually do adults by full immersion. And Claire is taller than me, which isn't saying very much. So I'm going to get a ladder and I'm going to sort of pour it from above. But we'll play it way, unless I can take her in my arms. Is that okay with you? Yeah, good. I'm sure that would be easily possible. Anyway, welcome. Good to have you here. On Saturday there was an open garden at Ian and Kate's house. Absolutely magnificent. I stood at the shoreline and watched these boaty things go across the water. I was standing next to Crispin. He said to Steve they're called yachts, not boaty things. And he taught me a new word, spinnaker, which I then used liberally whenever I met anybody. I would say, hey, welcome, I'm the vicar. Have you noticed the spinnakers out there? So I'm trying to become part of the sort of the village vibe. In terms of, it was great. We had tea and cakes made by friends of Bembridge. They raised £600, which is pretty impressive. That's a lot of tea and cake. So that was really good. Lots of good things going on in our notices sheet. You'll see that he is being ordained priest on July the 2nd. Let me just explain a little bit about what's going on. When you become a minister in the Church of England, you usually spend your first year being called a deacon. And that's a serving role and a learning role. And basically, the idea is that for the first year, you just sit and watch and see how it's done. And then when they think you've got the hang of it, in the second year, they ordain you priest. And so then you are deacon and a priest. Forever in the Church of England, unless you do something really naughty. If you do something reasonably naughty, they'll try and offer you a role as bishop. So it goes deacon, priest, bishop. Okay, so Heath is currently a priest, but watch this space, who knows what might happen to him. Anyway, so Heath is getting ordained priest on the 2nd of July, and if you would like to go and watch, there is an open invitation for his church family to go and see him get ordained priest, which means that he'll be able to do communion and do the whole magic hands thing in a week or so's time. Heath, I think, is facing a number of challenges for your regular curate. First of all, normally a curate resides in the parish that they're ministering in, but Heath and his family are living in Rye because that's where their centre of gravity is. And also Heath's ministry is not purely as a vicar here to be in a parish context, but he's also a pioneer minister. And so Heath's got a dual focus. He's both a pioneer minister, which is somebody who is looking to start churches from scratch, faith from within the community, not building on current church activity, but doing it from scratch. And Heath has done that. He's got a worshiping community of about 50 adults and young people and children, which is just an amazing achievement. So his focus is on pioneering ministry, while also looking at parish ministry. And his focus is on Bembridge, but also in Rye. So it's really tough. I think he's got a really tough gig. So please do pray for him for this year and for the years going forward as he works out his own particular ministry amongst us. Good. I'm leading and preaching this morning. I'm sorry, what can I say? And our theme this morning is God's light and God's love and God's grace in our lives. Let's stand. We're going to pray. Please stand. So we're continuing our series in the Gospel of Mark, where last week we encountered our very first parable, the parable of the sower. And we saw last week that Jesus deliberately teaches in parables not to make things immediately obvious, but in fact to create mystery, to tells stories that we need to work at in order to unlock. So, if we're interested, then parables cause us to ask big questions. And if we're not interested, then parables can just slip past by us. So, Jesus taught in parables. And the parable of the sower led us last week to this conclusion, that if we plant the word of God, and by that we mean Jesus, deep down into our soul, he will produce in us fruit 30, 60, 100-fold. What does that fruit look like? What impact does that fruit have upon our lives? And Jesus immediately tells another parable in order to answer those questions. And so we pick up the Gospel in Mark chapter 4, verse 21, page 1006. And the parable is just one verse. He said, "Do you bring in a lamp to put it under a bowl? Instead, don't you put it on a stand?" There it is. That's all of it. What does it mean? What is this lamp? What is its purpose? And how does this lamp change us? Those are our questions for this morning. What is this lamp? What is its purpose? And how does that lamp change us? Ready? Let's go to work on this parable. What is this lamp? John chapter 8, verse 12, Jesus said, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." So the question is not so much what is this lamp, but rather who is this lamp? This lamp is not a philosophy. It's not gaining of spiritual knowledge. It's not even a state of enlightenment. It's a person. It's Jesus. "I am the light of the world," he said. And in May, Andy Howe, you might remember, came and he preached to us. And he showed us a picture of a painting painted by Holman Hunt called "The Light of the World." And the painting is of Jesus standing outside someone's house, outside their door, holding a lamp. It was inspired by Revelation chapter 3, verse 20, where God says to you and to me, "Here I am. I stand at the door and knock. If you hear my voice and open the door, I will come in and eat with you, and you with me." And our parable talks about bringing a lamp in. Do you see that? You bring in a lamp, said Jesus. It doesn't say you find a lamp in the house and you light it that's already there. So we see that in both parables, Jesus starts on the outside of a person. The seed is in the sower's hand. It does not start off in the ground. The lamp is outside the door. It does not start off in the house. So when people talk about finding the light within them or looking inwards to find solutions, that is not Jesus' teaching. The solution, says Jesus, is not found in here, otherwise humanity would have found it by now. The answer is not within us. We have to receive it, we have to open our hearts to it, we have to welcome it, we have to invite it in, because God gate crashes no one's party. If you allow me an aside for a second, let me just talk about something different. There are two types of revelation that God gives us. There is a general understanding of God's love and his lights, the awesome scale of the universe when we look up, the amazing design of matter when we look in, the beauty of nature, the joy of life. There is a general understanding of God's light and grace, his undeserved love, common to everyone, given to everyone, to all of us. And then there is separately also a specific and special understanding of God and his love and his light in the person of Jesus. The grasping that God sacrifices himself on a cross. The staggering realization that it is God holding his hands, our arms wide open to forgive us. The game-changing realization that God's power can bring life out of dead. All seen in Jesus. There is a general understanding of God's light for everyone, and then there is a specific and special understanding of God's light to us personally. Theologians call them common grace, which is for everyone, and special grace, which is personal to you and to me. And it's this special grace, this personal Jesus, that is the lamp. The personal understanding of God that starts outside of us, which we choose to invite, welcome and bring in. And when we welcome the person of God into our lives, suddenly the penny drops. Suddenly, in a phrase that now makes more sense, we see the light. Not beforehand, but afterwards. So we realise this, that believing is seeing rather than seeing is believing. Christian logic is believing is seeing, not seeing is believing. That's why this parable is saying we invite Jesus into our life, we bring the light in, and then and only then do we see. What do we see? Good question. Second point. What's the purpose of this lamp? What do we see when we bring Jesus in? We see who we are, and why we are, and what's going on. Light helps us identify things. In pitch black dark room, we cannot see anything, we cannot identify anything, but bring in a light and suddenly we know where everything is and what it is. Light helps us identify. It would not be an overstatement to say that in our culture we struggle with identity. Knowing our identity is one of the biggest challenges facing young people today, I think. It used to be that our jobs gave us our identity. If you were a smith, or a Wainwright, or a tailor, or perhaps even a king, you pretty much knew which school you were going to go to, and what job you were going to do afterwards. But we've done away with that, rightly so. We say our jobs don't define us ultimately in our identity, which is right. We used to think that our class gave us our identity. We're either working class or upper class, low-born or high-born. The Victorian hymn, All Things Bright and Beautiful, do you know it? Has a verse in it which I guarantee you won't have sung recently. It goes like this. The rich man in his castle, the poor man at his gates, God made them high and lowly, and God ordered their estate. It used to be that our class determined our identity, and so the Victorian mindset was, women and children, know your place. We've done away with that, and rightly so. We say that our class, our background, our education, our wealth do not ultimately define our identity. Ultimate identity? Not your job, not your class. Well, what is it then? It used to be our ethnicity. We were British, proud to be British or not. We were black or white. We were from England or India or Asia. And now we are careful to say that the colour of our skin does not ultimately define us, which is good. Because we're very aware we live in a multicultural, multi-ethnic, mixed society. So not colour of our skin, and not jobs, and not class, and not money, and not status. What then? It used to be that our gender gave us our identity. And surely we all know in our culture today, for better or worse, our culture is saying our gender does not define us. We can be any gender we choose. Trans, cis, bi, pan, none of the above. We can choose our identity. You know, it's almost as if our culture is completely lost and has come to the end of the road trying to work out, well, what does give us our identity? Not job, not class, not background, not even gender. Who am I? What am I? Why am I? I am in the dark about it. And Jesus told a parable. He said, bring in the light. Verse 22, what is hidden will be disclosed, and what is concealed will be made clear. 2,000 years ago, Jesus said, invite me in, and let me shed a little light on who you are, and what you are, and why you are. You are a child of God. Not just in the general sense that we are all children of God because God made us all, but in a much more specific and personal way than that. The Apostle John said in 1 John chapter 3, see what great love the Father has lavished on us, that we should be called children of God. And that is what we are, he said. The Apostle Paul said in Romans 8 verse 15, the Spirit we received, do you notice that? We received. It didn't start on from us, but we welcomed, we invited the Spirit that we received, made us children of God by adoption. By adoption. in the sense that we did not start out as God's children, but God has adopted us into his family when we received him as our Father. And not everybody does want that. Because John chapter 1 verse 12 says, "Yet to those who did receive him," to those who did want him, "to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God." Children, born not of natural descent, it's not about our ethnicity, nor of a human decision, it's not about our jobs or qualifications or attainments, or of a husband's will, it doesn't matter what family you're in, but born of God. We are children of God. We can all know that this God made this world beautiful. That's called common grace. But we also can know that God made us personally, individually, forever. Unreserved, undeserved, overwhelming, personal grace. Personal. Do you see that? The Lamb is Jesus, the light of the world. His light invited in gives us our ultimate identity as dearly loved children. And 3, this light within us then changes us. Jesus says, if you just look at the passage, okay, verse 24, "Consider carefully now what you hear. Because with the measure you use, it will be measured to you, and even more. For whoever has will be given more. Whoever has not, even what they have, will be taken from them." What does that mean? Jesus says, consider this carefully. You've taken God into your life. You've taken the life of God into you. You've realized how unconditionally and sacrificially and abundantly loved you are. And how this is all so undeserved and unmerited. Well, said Jesus, in the light of this, treat others the way you know God has treated you. Be generous in your thinking about them, because God was generous to you. Be kind in your words about them. Do not be suspicious about others. Do not be wary of others. Do not see if someone's offended you. Do not see them as enemies, but rather see them, even if they've offended you, as potential friends. Why? Because that is how God has treated us. Do not speak of them in us and them terms, but give people so much love, so much generosity in your opinion about them, that they feel so welcomed by you. Even if they don't welcome you, you welcome them. Then you stand a chance, it's not a guarantee, but you stand a chance of creating friends in strange places. You who now know you have a personal relationship with Jesus and his life is in you, be Jesus to others. To those who annoy you, to those who are not like you, to those you are suspicious of, open your arms to them, even though it may cost you. For Jesus says, with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. The light within us changes us and becomes lights to the others. With the measure you use, God will measure to you. But I say to that, oh my goodness, I'm not sure I really want that. With the measure I use, it will be measured to me, God, because to be honest, I'm pretty rubbish at being good. I'm not very good at being very good. This may just be a little bit depressing. If the measure I use is the measure God uses to me, I'm in trouble. And so Jesus says in verse 24, don't worry. With the measure you use, it will measure to you, and more, and more, and more. Isn't that just like God? I will give you, Steve, so much love that even when you do fall short, I will love you with deep, vast, and wide, high, abundant love. So go on, Steve, be brave. Let your light shine. Be overwhelmed by the kindness and the graciousness and the gentleness of my love for you, that it might from within you bear fruit 30, 60, 100 times. For one day, whoever has will be given more. One day, when we pass from this world, we will present to God the unconditional sacrificial love he has given us. And God will say, let me suffuse your whole being with the light of my being. And the light and the love of God will pour out from every pore in our body. We will be radiant. God is in us, never to leave us, never to forsake us. And that is amazing. But, Jesus says, if you don't choose to invite Jesus in, if you say, God, I'm going to keep you on the outside at a safe distance, then even the general grace, the world, the universe, the joy of life, will fade one day from you and grow dim. And Jesus said, whoever has ears, let it hear and understand. The parable of the lamp. The lamp is Jesus. His light gives us our identity as his children. The light in our life can be light to others with love. The parable of the lamp. Genius. Let's pray. God, I want to thank you personally that actually your love and grace to me is individual and specific, taking me where I am, understanding my failures, forgiving, refreshing and restoring me. And everyone here, specific, understood, known, and still gracious. God, Jesus, Holy Spirit, we invite you into our life to be King. Plant your life in our life deep. Help us to follow you. Nurture the life within us, that we ourselves may be light and Jesus to others.